Hey everyone, Paul here with Habitat IQ. We're about to talk about the benefits of the mobile experience in the Habitat IQ app. So after login, you're going to be taken to your home property and my property screen. And this is going to be a view of specifically what your property looks like today. As you can see on my map, we have the camera integration for the reveal cameras. The white pins, they're going to be your stand locations and your box blinds. All of the green fields are going to be your food plots and your ag fields. And then the red pins that you're seeing are going to be structures that we consider like human pressure sources in the app. And then the red lines are going to be your roads or ATV trails and your access points. The most important functionality within the app to get started is going to be building out your baseline property. And you're going to do that by using this add something new button in the bottom of the app. So as you can see, I've added some elements to my property, but there's more that I have to do. So if I click add something new, I have 6 different categories of items that I can add to my baseline map. You have your food sources. This is going to be your food plots, your ag fields, your bait stations or feeders, and your natural food sources. You're also going to have water. So you have the ability to map out your flowing water, your still sources of water, and then your ones that we consider small. We have your human pressure areas. Think about these like paths, roads, structures, and we give you the ability to draw like an independent shape as well that, maybe a parking lot or a campground or a yard. These human pressures are really, really important in the app. And I think it's probably an overlooked part of hunting overall is, how those human pressure sources impact the habitat zones and the deer movement across a property. So really important to map those out thoroughly. We also have the habitat section. So the habitat section is going to be all of your cover elements. If you have pastures across your property, you can, lay out where those pastures are. And then you also have the ability to build screening across your property so you can ensure that, deer have security where you want them to have security, and also to minimize your pressure by maybe screening some of those access routes to and from your stand. You have the ability to add your hunting locations. Again, human pressure sources, right? But you can add a stand, you can add a blind, you can add a box blind, and you can pin those all across your property. And when you do that, you also create a path to that. And then make sure to reconsider how you're accessing your stands and how it will impact your property. So in this example, I want to add a stand over here in the back corner of this field. So we'll drop the pin there. It is going to be a box blind. If you like to name it, you can name it here, but you do have a default name that auto-populates. And then hit continue. It's going to ask me to draw the access trail that I'm using to get in and out of that stand. And in this example, I'm going right along this field edge, which has some really dense cover right to the edge. And I can use that cover to ensure the deer aren't seeing me come in and out of the stand. Click finish area. And now you can see I just indicated where that stand is going to be and the access point or points from which we'll access. When I go back into the add something new area, adding water sources. So in the add something new button, you'll find this area where we can add water. And over the months of working with Jeff Sturgis on this app, I found that even the smallest of water source can make a big difference on your property. So in this example, I want to add a watering hole fairly close to that tree stand that I'm about to hang. So I'll pinpoint on the property where specifically that is going to be. I'm going to choose my type. And this one I'm actually going to dig in and make it a watering hole. I'll indicate that It will be in use by deer. I plan to do that this weekend. And I'll go ahead and save that element to my property. So in this example, I've indicated that I have a stand with my access and the new water hole that I'm about to put in. And if you zoom out a bit, it'd be really important that you go across your whole property and specifically map out all of those items that you find under these different categories after clicking the Add Something New button. The last function I'll point out to you is your pins. So this pin section is designed to give you many different categories of pins that you would expect from a mapping software. So when you drop a pin location and you hit continue, you'll see that you have a pretty extensive library of the different types of pins that you can drop. You have your wildlife category, you have your scouting category, and then you have those unique terrain features that are the last category. We do expect to continue adding categories and pins in as the app becomes more mature, but you'll have access to adding all of these pins in all three categories, which I find really beneficial when you're out in the field and you're got boots on the ground and you're scouting. So again, click continue, choose specifically the pin that you want, and you save that pin. The last element I'd like to cover on the different categories is going to be the pin category. So if you click into the pin category, this is going to allow you to create custom pins and choose from a library of pins that you'd expect from a mapping software. So let's say I'm out scouting and I find a scrape right in this area. I'll go ahead and drop a pin there. I'll click continue. If you've recently used any pins, you'll find those pre-populated at the top. And then you have three additional categories. You have your wildlife category, your scouting category, and your terrain category. In this example, I'm going to indicate that I found a community scrape. I am going to save that. And you'll see that element now shows up on my map. So when you're out scouting, you got boots on the ground, you're doing your work through the spring, summer, find this to be a really important functionality to be able to identify all those different categories of elements across your property, whether it be wildlife, whether it be sheds, whether it be rubs and scrapes, trails, or even terrain features like draws and peaks and valleys. Important to get those mapped out. So make sure you use that custom pin section within the Add Something New. So now that we have our baseline property mapped out, you can see that in the top right here, I have a score of 19. And if you click that score, it's going to take you into 3 views of different scores for your property. You have your overall property score, which mine's scoring a 274 right now. So again, I have some work to do, but that is up 76 points with some of the changes that I've made. You also have a habitat score. This is really where I need to do the most improvements. Have plenty of food sources on my property, but haven't spent a lot of time doing habitat work. So my score is indicating a 19 here. And then the confidence score is a 95. And really this is just an indicator of how confident the app is and that we are of, the scores that we're showing you above. The more that you have on your baseline property, and the more that you've indicated of where things are and how your property's laid out, the higher the confidence score will be. So I find the scoring to be really valuable and an interesting way to kind of look at, again, your overall habitat score, your overall score of your property, and understanding if the system and our experts believe that you've mapped out enough things on your property to have that high confidence score, which, as you can see, mine's at a 95. So we're pretty confident that my habitat score is low and my overall score, while at 274, has some work to go. When you're on your baseline, one of the key functionalities is going to be recalculating your score in your habitat zones, which you do by clicking this button at the top right. Now you can see we have these colored habitat zones that have displayed over the map elements on the property. And if you zoom into these, you can see that in some areas there are 3 colors that indicate mature buck bedding, which is that green zone. You have your yellow zone, which is the young buck bedding. And then you have your orange or red zone there, which is going to be a lot of your doe bedding. And then you have your property score in the top right, which mine today is a 19, so I've got some work to do. Again, if you go into the legend, you can turn these habitat zones on and off by toggling here, if you'd like a clearer view. So in your My Property view, you have a legend that lives down here in the bottom left. And this will be where you'll see your bedding zones for your mature bucks, your young bucks, and then the doe bedding zones. And then you'll have multiple layers as well within the app. You have your satellite view, you have your topo view, you have your hybrid view, and then you have some functionality to be able to toggle on and off the 3D maps, the habitat zones, and your camera integrations and property boundaries. So one of the coolest features I like here when we're looking at the My Property screen is a layer that we have called 3D mapping. So if you click into the map layers, you'll see a toggle here to view your map in 3D. You click that toggle. This brings in a 3D element to the mapping that allows you to see specifically the low spots on a property, the ridges on a property, and gives you a really good indicator of just overall how that landscape looks across the property. Another cool feature that I like here is the camera integration within Habitat IQ. So the camera integration is going to be a direct integration with Reveal trail cameras, and that's specifically any camera that has GPS or any camera that has GPS coordinates associated with it in your Reveal app. And in this view, you can see have quite a few cameras on this property. And there's an additional layer that you can toggle on and off here that is going to show you your camera battery status. If you're anything like I am, I think most hunters put these cameras out early fall at the very latest and then let them sit and marinate until spring. So you'll see when I turn this on, have quite a bit of work to do ahead of me to get out there and replenish the batteries. But it's an interesting view there. You can see the ones that have external power sources and the ones that are running off of internal power sources. And then again, if you toggle that off, you're going to get just the view of where those cameras are across the property. If you click on the camera, one of my favorite views here in Habitat IQ is when you click into the camera menu function, and you have this view here of all of your Reveal cameras that have integrated and pulled in from your Reveal account over to the Habitat IQ account. You're going to see a high-level overview of whether the camera has an internal battery or an external battery, the signal strength, the storage capacity, and the last time that camera checked in. And the coolest feature that I like about this integration is that if you click on the individual camera itself, it's going to pull in the most recent media for that camera. So again, you have the coordinates, you have the battery type, you have the signal strength, you have the storage capacity, and then you have your photo feed, your gallery feed for that specific camera right within the Habitat IQ app. You'll get that with every one of your Reveal cameras. They have GPS or not. You just got to make sure that those ones that don't have the GPS are actually mapped out on your property with specific points in your Reveal map in order for that integration to pull over. So the simulations feature within Habitat IQ is really exploring what your property could become. And that could be the changes you can make on your property this year, or it could be, the changes that you intend to make for the upcoming fall, or it could be as far out as 2, 3, 4 years from now. So this is really just modeling what the possibilities are, and then how it would either positively or negatively impact your property based on the changes that you're considering making. So when you click into the simulations mode, you can see here I have a few simulations that I've already created, and I'm going to click into this new one. And then to start a simulation, you're going to use this Add Something New button in the bottom. When you click Add Something New, you'll be able to choose from the different categories of the items that you can add to the map. In this specific one, I want to add a food plot in for the fall. And we're going to put that food plot right here in this back corner of the property. So I'll draw out the boundaries first. I'll select the crop types, which in this one I'm going to do clover. And I'm also going to put some ryegrass in there. I'll choose how many hours of sunlight that plot gets. And then I'll save those details. So what I've just done is I've simulated on my property what the addition of a food plot in this area could potentially do to change the score. And if I make multiple changes to this property, let's say multiple food plots, or if I want to do even habitat improvement, right? Let's say I want to do some TSI work. I can indicate here this block of timber that we want to add some TSI to. Can finish that area. Choose timber stand improvement. It's going to be a very dense and diverse area. We'll save that one. So now I've made 2 changes to this property. Once you have the model that you're happy with, you can recalculate your score by clicking the top right. And by doing so, it's going to tell you how those changes have positively or negatively impacted your baseline property. And once you have something that you like in a simulation that you're happy with, you can then take that simulation and you can promote it right here to your property plan. In the bottom sidebar menu here, mobily, you'll see that we have a property plan feature. And this is really where you're taking the simulations that you're potentially going to do on your property, and you're saying, yes, that's the one I want to go do. So when you promote that simulation to the property plan becomes your to-do list of the things that you intend to do on this property. As you can see, based on my simulation and property plan, I have a list of, looks like about maybe 15 or so items that I intend to do this season. And each one of these items can be seen at a high-level view by clicking the View Plan Map. So if you want to zoom out a bit, you click this button and you can see everything that's in color there are the changes that I intend to make to my property this year. When I go back to my plan, you'll have, again, that itemized view of the specific things that you want to achieve on your property. And you can set dates and priority to every one of these items. So I want to add cover and do some spring TSI work. And I want to have that done by April 30th, right? So if I go into here, you can change the name, you can change the date, and you can change the priority level for every one of those items within your property plan. So let's say I was feeling a little over ambitious and decided that I wanted to push that work out until the 14th. I can come in here and change the due date for that, and it will automatically update my plan. What I really like about this feature is it allows you to track what you're getting done on your property and then automatically update your baseline property when that work has been completed. So let's say that I added this small watering hole and I took care of the spring bedding area on the back side of the property. I could click those 2 items and I can click Merge to Baseline. And this is me essentially saying, yes, I completed that work And now it's time for that work to be reflected on my home property. So that's a high-level overview of property plan. It's really when you bring your ideas to, your to-do list and bring them to reality on your property. So I urge you to try the property planning, simulate multiple simulations, and then when you have one that you really like, promote it to your property plan and get to work.